Hey, thank you so much for joining us at our Crosspoint Church podcast. Now, if you're new to our podcast or maybe new to our church in general, we're just a bunch of messed up people who don't have it all together, running after a heavenly leader who loves us and meets us right where we are. We hope this message encourages you, builds your faith, and strengthens your confidence as you continue down this journey of what it means to know and follow Jesus. Enjoy this message.
Turn it off! I can't! It's anti-spotted! I have plastic fingers! Oh. It's good to be back.
Shiny.
What?
Nothing.
Someone needs a brown marker.
It's been too long, Woody.
Came here as fast as I could after Jesse called for help.
Oh, thank you.
We've got it handled. Look, Star, Deputy, me, no Star.
Oh, hey, Buzz, what is that?
What? Where?
Ow.
Hey,
I'm gonna let this device know how things are run around here.
try to stay calm, Jesse.
I'm the definition of calm.
It's not gonna work.
I want to talk to you, device.
Not touching, Jessica.
Oh, no.
She used the J word.
Scandal.
Hi! Oh, come on!
Just getting away, Buzz.
Enjoy the garage, Stuffalo Bill.
Stuffalo Bill.
First we were playing, and then the world started changing. No. Oh, are we getting donated?
Donut.
No, sweetie. Donated.
Bonnie doesn't want to play with toys anymore. She needs me.
Jesse, you know Bonnie better than anyone. What does your gut say?
Bonnie still needs us. Our time ain't over yet.
We're gonna need backup. Affirmative, Commander.
No way.
Come on, Bullseye.
Hey, wait for us!
You got a friend
Clear.
Disney and Pixar's Toy Story 5.
Oh, man, so fun. Well, hey, excited to, you can clap for that. That's lots of fun. We get excited about this series because we love movies and they speak to our hearts, and we find these spiritual threads in so many of them. I think it's why we're drawn to the big screen. And so today we're going to unpack some things out of this movie, and this has some massive connects. I mean, in terms of things that probably many of us have experienced even over the last weeks or even months. So welcome to Crosspoint. My name's Curt. Really excited to have you with us this weekend. And if you are a guest, again, you've got free movie tickets coming your way, so make sure you hit that digital connection card, fill out the physical one in the room if you got that. Let us know who is all in your party. We want to send you free movie tickets. We think it's pretty cool that you came to church, and we want to bless you. We think God's generous, and so we want to be that way towards you with some tickets. So, and then let's make some noise for those joining us online this weekend. So excited to have you tuning in with us, whether you're at the beach this weekend, traveling. Maybe some of you are sitting, in a dorm room. You're already back at school, excited that you're tuning in, joining us this weekend. You can do the same thing. If you're here for the first time, make sure you let us know on the digital connection card, and we'd love to send you some free tickets. Now, before we jump into this weekend's movie, I want to tell you about a big weekend coming up in 5 weekends. We're going to have an event here, which is going to be the grand opening of the Commons on Friday, September 11th, for the Commons at Crosspoint. I know some of you are going, oh my gosh, I thought the Commons was already open. Well, it has been. I mean, we have co-working and, people that are, using space and renting rooms and doing all kinds of things. It's just like, when a store opens and like they do a soft open, then they're like, hey, we're here, and they do a big event. We're doing that. And so this is really for the community to come in and see the space and to do something for our community. And so we want to invite you to it. It's Friday, September 11th, and it's a time where you can, come on your own. You can bring your office. It's a great opportunity to bring your team if you have the flexibility to do that. You're gonna have a chance to explore the Commons, to network with people. We're gonna have a light breakfast, coffee, and then a keynote with Clay Scroggins, which is a favorite in the corporate marketplace in our country today. He is an amazing speaker, and so he's going to be talking about leadership culture, and it's just an honor to have him with us. And so a great opportunity to bring your team. If you want to sign up, you can scan that QR code and let us know you're coming, let us know you're bringing a team, or you can let us know on your connection card, and we'll send you some info. And then the cool thing is he's also going to be with us for our weekend services, and so he's going to be with us the weekend of September 10th and 13th. Now, here's the thing. He's only going to be live on Thursday, September 10th. So we would love to like fill the house on that night. And so, you know, if you're a regular Thursday crowd, or if you normally come on Sunday or tune in online, we'd love to have you join us in the building that weekend. In fact, if you can let us know if you plan to come on your connection card, we would love to know that. And it's just going to be a great opportunity to hear from him in our setting here at Cross Point. And again, he's only going to be live Thursday. So he's going to go via video on Sunday morning, but Thursday he's going to be here, and then we're going to have an after party where you can interact with him, meet him. It's just going to be a great, great weekend. So make sure you put that on your calendars. It's going to be a great, great celebration as we continue to serve and build into our community. All right, today we got the newest installment of the Disney Pixar film, Toy Story 5. This is crazy. How many of you grew up with Toy Story? Just make some noise. If like you grew up, it was in your house, on your TVs. Yeah. So you know, it's crazy because when this movie came out, it came out 30 years, 6 months, and 27 days after the first release of Toy Story 1. Isn't that crazy? So some of you, like, if you're 30 years old or less, like you've always had the gang with you, like the whole gang. And so as you saw in this trailer, you have Woody, you have Buzz, you have Jesse. They're challenged as they're introduced to a new challenge, which is electronics. Electronics are kind of taking the kids' playtime away. Kids aren't wanting to play with toys any longer. And I think Toy Story 5 is probably the funniest movie because we get introduced to a new figure. His name's Smarty Pants, played by Conan O'Brien. And he is a potty training device. And has like, and you know, potty humor never gets old. I mean, he says things like, I'm really good at pushing. And so like, you know, it just never gets old when you have potty humor. So it's super funny. But in this installment at the same time, Jessie experiences some pretty deep-seated abandonment issues and some trauma that begins to rise to the surface that goes all the way back to her earlier episodes where she, you know, when Emily was like her life, when her owner was her life, and all of a sudden Emily grows up and begins to have other interests, and she's left feeling abandoned and alone. And during this installment, she actually realizes that her purpose is actually for more than just a season. Now, this has some massive, massive connects for things you and I deal with every single day. It's crazy how these movies connect with us this way. You know, maybe you're in a season where you're going through a season of transition. Maybe that has to do with a job. Maybe that has to do with a relationship, a marriage. Maybe you've been in a parenting season where you've been needed like all the time, and your kids are getting to the place where they just don't need you as much anymore. Or maybe like they've gone off to college, and all of a sudden you're left with like, okay, what is my purpose? This is what my life has been oriented around. And so today we're gonna dive into this idea of mission and purpose for our personal lives. In fact, this is going to be a bit of a precursor for a seminar that my wife and I are going to be leading over the next 4 weeks called Developing Your Personal Mission Statement for Life and Work. And you certainly don't have to attend the seminar. You might decide that you want to. But I just think there's some things in this as we think about this movie that can really help us as we think about what it looks like to make the next season perhaps one of our best. Now, there's a book that goes with this. It's called The Path. And in this book, Lori Beth Jones asks 2 questions, and kind of helps us understand how to define our personal mission, but she also gives us the tools to help us accomplish that. And here's what she says in terms of why developing a personal mission statement is so important. She says a personal mission statement acts as both a harness and a sword, harnessing what you know to be true about your life and cutting away all that is false. Meaning, whether you are a migrant worker turning in your last basket of fruit for the season, or you're a CEO knowing that your worth is only as good as your last quarterly report when it comes to your job. Or perhaps you're, again, a stay-at-home parent, and you've had a pretty intense season with your kids, and your kids are moving into a new season. Each of us, when we go through transitions into the next season, we're faced with 2 questions. And these are the questions that Lori Beth asks in this process. It's also questions that Jesse asks. And the questions are where now and what next? And so in this installment of Toy Story, Jesse has to confront these 2 questions. And so we're going to dig into this a bit. Now, before we do that, I want to paint a picture of a parable that Jesus told us about life, vocation, mission, like our purpose when it comes to our role here on this earth. Now, Jesus tells this parable. He talks about an owner of a estate and how this owner of the estate went out to hire some workers early one morning to help harvest his fields. And he agrees to pay them $20, and he sends them out to work for the day. And a couple hours later, he's passing through the hiring hall, and he notices there's more men that are looking for some work. He says, hey, you guys want to work for me? And they do. So he says, hey, go to the fields. I'll pay you at the end of the day. He does the same thing at noon. He does the same thing at 3 in the afternoon. And so all these men come to the end of the day, and they gather around to be paid, and each of them are paid $20 by the landowner. And of course, the workers that got there earlier are like protesting, like, what do you mean? We're getting the same amount of money as the guys that showed up just a couple hours ago. And here's what Jesus says to them. In the Gospel of Matthew, he says, "Friend," he answers them. He says, "I did you no wrong. Didn't you agree to work for $20? And this parable is fascinating because there's all kinds of lessons in it. I mean, one of the lessons is just that, God is generous, and God can be generous in whatever way he wants. But there's kind of another inferred lesson right here that kind of implies that we get what we settle for. And so we have to value ourselves, and we actually have to value our gifts. So today, I want us to look at 11 false assumptions when it comes to our mission, our purpose, the reason that you were put on this planet. And you may have no idea of what that is. And so this isn't going to necessarily help you identify that mission, but it's certainly going to take us closer to realizing and giving us some clarity that God has actually put us here for a purpose. And so these are going to be a part of the Developing Your Mission Statement seminar, but I just think these are some things that are going to be helpful for all of us today. And so you might just say, hey, these are really helpful. You might say, hey, as a result of this, I want to dig in deeper. I'd love to join the seminar and get some coaching on developing my personal mission statement. You also could just pick the book up, The Path, and do a self-guided journey. And in all of these are things that will benefit you. I really think it'll help actually give you some purpose and trajectory change. But all of us, I think, will get a sense of like, perhaps my greatest season is the one that's still yet to come. Now, I shared a bit of my story a few weeks ago when it comes to developing my personal mission statement. I'm not going to revisit that, and I know not all of us were here for that weekend, but kind of the big picture narrative was I wouldn't be here today doing what I'm doing right now if I had not stumbled upon this idea of creating a personal mission statement. In fact, you wouldn't be right here today because Crosspoint wouldn't be here. I was ready to bail on ministry. I'd been in ministry for 3 years, and I was ready to just walk away until I discovered what my mission was, and I go, oh my gosh, I get to do this every single day. Now, fast forward, 30 years to today, and it's crazy because here I am actually championing and living out my personal mission by being able to actually talk about this. And so the learning lab that's going to be happening over the next 4 weeks, along with the book, there's all kinds of exercises and reflections, and we're not going to dig into these, but I want to give you an example of one of them. One is called The Cup of Sorrow. Now, before I tell you what this is, Carl Jung, he says, nothing affects the environment of a child so much as the unlived life of a parent. And so one of the reflections in this process is identifying the cups of sorrows that have been handed to you. Meaning, in the book, in the seminar, there's an experience where you list all the significant people in your life, your mom, your dad, your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, your brothers, your sisters, any significant people that were friends that perhaps poured into your life, and you identify what is the cup of sorrow or the unlived dream that perhaps they handed you. And you might say, well, how does that play into my mission? Well, it actually has some pretty massive impact. In fact, when I went to the seminar, Lori Beth told the story about a man who was a CEO in a large company, a company you would know by name. And he came to her one day because he wanted to get clear on his personal mission because he felt like he was in the wrong place. He was crazy successful, but he felt like he was supposed to be doing something else. And so she asked him, she said, well, what do you feel like you're supposed to be doing? He said, well, I just feel like I'm supposed to step out of my role and get this, go start a pipe organ museum. Right? Like, what in the world? Like, I'm sure she had the same response. Like, what does that have to do with what you're doing right now? Well, he began to go through this process of this cup of sorrow of identifying in his mom, his dad, all the significant people in his life. What was the thing, what was the unlived, realized dream in their life? And he began to write these down. He got to his mom, and he realized that my mom always wanted to play the pipe organ. But she never had time. She had 5 kids. She didn't have the time to actually do lessons. We were strapped financially, so she never had the money to actually engage in that. And she got to the end of her life, to her final days, and she said to her son, she said, boy, I hope one day you might be able to play the organ because I never was able to realize that dream. And she handed him that unfulfilled dream. I know it sounds crazy. These things affect us. Get this, he was about ready to step out of a job he was crazy successful at to fulfill a dream and a mission that wasn't his until he identified this. It's crazy how these things come into play. There's the other side of this. There's a whole process of going through what are some of the prophecies that have been given to us by the same groups of people that said, hey, when you were young, hey, you're really good at this. One day you might, because sometimes those are ways that God builds into us to point us in the direction we go. So we're not going to dig any further into those, but I want to give us 11 assumptions today about mission, because a lot of times these are the things that keep us from understanding that God has actually uniquely put us on this earth. And they're things that we see Jesse dealing with as well. So I'm going to kind of thread that in. So here we go. You guys ready? You guys ready for these? There's 11 of them, all right? 11. Here we go. We're going to go super fast. Here we go. Number 1, my job is my mission. Now, your job hopefully is a part of your mission, all right? Hopefully in what you do, you're fulfilling your mission. But here's what's crazy. The World Economic Forum that says almost 2/3 of workers in the U.S. are actively looking for a new job right now. The research finds that workers stay with one employer an average of 4.1 years, holding down an average of 12 jobs in a working lifetime. Now, when you think about that, to confine your entire sum of your personality, your gifts, all that you bring to the world to your current job puts you in a pretty precarious position to think that when I move to a different job, I'm actually going to lose, in a certain sense, my identity. In fact, there's also this mindset that kind of contributes to this crazy phenomenon, especially with men, where when men sometimes get to retirement points, they have so attached themselves to their job being their mission that the moment they hit their day of retirement, they actually pass away. Because just internally, they so oriented their lives around that they don't have any reason to exist after that. And so your job certainly should be a part of your mission, but your job is not your mission. False assumption number 2. My role is my mission. Now, one of the things we see in this installment of the Toy Story franchise is Jessie, she goes into a pretty deep depression. We see this in episode 4, we see this back in episode 3, because she begins to sense and feel like she's no longer needed. And she was needed for a season. I mean, her owner, Emily, who was her child, her kid, who owned her as a doll, she would spend every waking hour with Emily. She'd go everywhere with Emily. She'd sleep with Emily. Every day was spent with Emily. She felt like my job is to, bring joy to Emily in this season of life. But there came a season when Emily all of a sudden began to have other interests. And all of a sudden, Jessie feels like she's been left behind. For those of you that are parents out there, it's easy to say, well, my role as a parent is my mission. But see, that role is not your mission. And here's why this is so important. Because heaven forbid, let's just say one day one of your kids, passes away. Just think about dealing with that, the grief of dealing with the loss of a child, but at the same time having the grief of literally losing your mission. So your role as a parent could be a part of your mission, but it can't be your mission. Third thing, my to-do list is my mission. Now, Stephen Covey actually pointed this out a number of years ago in his book, Putting First Things First. He talked about people's to-do lists kind of usually fall in the realm of the urgent, but not genuinely important duties, right? So just think about your to-do list. You're like, man, it's urgent, probably not overly important. There's a leadership development consultant. Her name's Catherine Calhoun, and she was leading a group of people through this process of developing the personal mission statement. And she was coaching them. They were collaborating together. And then one of them said, hey, what if we go and each take an individual personal retreat and go off and finish our mission statement? And she goes, I know exactly what they're going to come back with when they do that. And it was exactly the case. Every single person came back with a giant to-do list with the same priorities, the same urgencies that they had been focusing on for the last 5 years. All right? Because there's a sense of, man, if I can get this done, I will feel a sense of fulfillment, which you probably would, but that's not your mission. Number 4, I am not currently living my mission. This is fascinating. Psychologists who meet with leaders have found that many leaders do not feel powerful when, in fact, they actually are exercising their power at its greatest potential. That they fail to realize the influence that they carry. And it's highly probable that right now, even if you don't know what your mission is, you are actually living it out to some degree or another. So this whole process is intended to increase the clarity on that. Number 5, I'm not important enough to have a mission. I want you to think about this. Physicists and scientists agree that a seemingly insignificant event such as a butterfly flapping its wings in the continent of Africa can actually affect the atmosphere in the state of Alaska. Think about that. Something as insignificant as that. One of my favorite Christmas movies is It's a Wonderful Life. You're probably familiar with it. Suicidal businessman George Bailey. He feels like his life isn't worth living. What am I doing? I'm not bringing anything significant to the world. And so the whole journey of the movie is him seeing his existence and the way that he's affected the lives of others and getting pictures of what their lives would look like if he wasn't here. See, we can never underestimate the most insignificant things and the impact they have on others. Number 6, my mission has to be grand and help a lot of people. For years and years, leaders who met with the State of the World Forum determined that the most important roles in the world are those who work with parenting, teaching, and healing. And what they found was that these roles, I mean, if you're in one of those roles, like they are grossly underpaid, right? In fact, they're undervalued compared to the current gross national product for growth. And yet what they said is if you're parenting someone, if you are teaching someone, if you're healing someone, you are perhaps doing some of the most significant work in the world. In fact, they would even say if there's one person or creature that you have raised, taught, or healed, then you could consider your life a success. And so my mission doesn't have to be grand for me to have massive impact. Number 7, my mission must be full of suffering. Now, this is an interesting one because a lot of times we think, man, if I'm going to get a mission, if I'm going to kind of step into my God-ordained purpose that God put me on the earth for, I'm going to hate it, and it's going to be hard, and I'm going to have to suffer. Now, this is always interesting that this is how we think about this, because I want you to look at something Jesus said when he was talking about what it means to follow him in the life that he calls us to live. In fact, here's what he said in the Gospel of Matthew. He said, "Take my yoke or my way upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find," look at this, "rest for your souls." He says, when you are following your God-ordained mission, the reason that I put you on this planet, when you sync up with that, you're going to find, man, it just kind of flows. You know why? Because it doesn't feel like work. You're actually doing the very thing you were created to do. For he says, my yoke, my way, the way I designed you to live is easy, and my burden is light. See, somehow we have this idea that, man, if I get in sync with my God-given purpose, I'm going to have to suffer. I'm going to hate it. Now, a few years ago, my wife and I, actually about 20 years ago, it was before we started Crosspoint, I was serving in another church, and we were beginning to get a sense that, like, God has a new season for us. And so I started getting calls from other churches saying, hey, would you be interested in our position? Would you come interview with us? And we started taking some of these interviews. And so we were traveling to different places, and we happened to travel to a church kind of in southern Illinois, mid-sized town right on the edge of Missouri, right across the river from Missouri. And we were meeting with the pastor and his wife, and they were kind of interviewing us. And they were talking about my role, what my role would be if we came there, which was working with student ministry. And I was the one being interviewed, but then they said to my wife, now, Julie, here's your role. Now, let me remind you, she was not being interviewed. All right, but they said, Julie, your role is going to be to cook for all the students in the student ministry and have them into your house every Sunday night. And my wife's eyes got like saucers. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not going well. And so, so we continued to like listen and process and answer questions. And then we got in the car, and the pastor and his wife took us on kind of a tour of the city. They said, hey, when you guys come to town, like here's the school your kids will go to, and here's some of the neighborhoods you're going to want to live in. And then every now and then, I was sitting in the front with the pastor, and Julie was sitting in the back with the pastor's wife. Every now and then, the pastor would just stop, and he'd go, oh, Julie, here's one of the grocery stores that you're going to shop at. And her eyes would get real big. I'm like, all right. And he didn't just do that once. He didn't do it twice. He did it 3 times. And by the 3rd time, my wife was so pleasant but direct. And she said, hey, Carl, let me tell you something. You can just direct Curt to those because he does all the shopping in our family. And so I knew that meant like, hey, we're moving on. This isn't where we're coming, which we'd already been sensing that. When we left the interview and got back with them and said, hey, we just don't feel like this is like we're a good fit for your community, the pastor said, yeah, we felt like you guys were a little too northern for us. And I'm like, and probably a number of other things as well. And so, and here's the deal. Julie can cook. She does cook. But that would have been a living hell for her. Absolutely a living hell for her. I mean, because see, here's the deal. When somebody infers a mission on you, like, it doesn't go well. And yet I wish I could tell you how many people, and I'm not talking dozens, I'm talking hundreds, that I've come across over the years that are living a mission that someone else has inferred or implied to them. That somebody said, hey, this is your mission. This is what you're to do. And so we just have to be aware that when we identify our mission, if it doesn't align with our gifts or interests, It's not just like, oh, I got to suffer through this, right? Sacrifice is noble, right? And it forms us, but it should be willing sacrifice, not imposed sacrifice. Number 8, my mission must be the same as those of my peers. So this is interesting because we used to have a phrase in our house with our kids. We still use it every now and then. We say, hey, show me your friends, and I'll tell you the direction that your life's going to go, right? Because like you can take a sum of your relationships and your close friendships and pretty much get an idea of the direction that you're going to go. Now, we need people in our life. I'm a huge advocate of community. I'm a huge advocate of my kids having a diverse community in their life. But when it comes to your mission, we have to at least temporarily disassociate ourselves from the influence of those that are closest to us. Otherwise, we risk taking on someone else's mission and not getting clear on our own. Number 9, geography is destiny. Now, this is fascinating. You probably heard it said it takes a village to raise a child. It also has been said that it takes a village also to stifle one. Think about that for a moment. Where you grow up, what the context of where you live, the cityscape that you experience shapes your life. In fact, on a number of occasions, Jesus actually talked about guarding our hearts and guarding our eyes based on what we see and experience. In fact, in Matthew chapter 6, he said, your eyes are windows into your body. If you open your eyes wide in wonder and belief, your body fills up with light. If you live squinty-eyed in greed and distrust, your body is a musty cellar. And so what Jesus is saying is, hey, what you take in, what you see, what you're experiencing, right, the landscape going on around you, it actually becomes a part of you. And so we have to consider what we're seeing and what we're hearing on a daily basis because the physical landscape is influencing our view of the world. Meaning if you have a passion for the poor, you're probably not going to be living in like Aspen, Colorado or Fishers, Indiana, right? Like you're going to probably need to be in a place where you have direct access. All right, and so the point here is there should be a natural and positive alignment between your mission and your geography. And it's important to not let our geography dictate our destiny. And then number 10, what I'm doing is as close as I can get to my real mission. Now this one really taps into the story of Jesse that we're looking at this week. And I want to spend a little time on this one right here. Because this one probably is the one that has the most impact on us coming to see that perhaps your greatest impact might be next, in the next season. I have a friend, a coach, a mentor, his name's Greg Wines, and he would always say to me, he'd say, hey, Curt, you spend the first half of your life figuring out why you're on the planet, and then you spend the second half actually doing it. You know, I was thinking about this week, and I was thinking about like the entirety of my ministry career. I mean, I've been in ministry, I've been doing what I'm doing for like 30 years. And you know, as I think about all that, I get overwhelmed with gratitude. I find myself going, oh my gosh, I've had the opportunity to be a part of so many cool moments, so many amazing moments, significant moments in people's lives, seasons of just like experiencing God's favor and blessing. I mean, seasons of impact and momentum. I mean, just crazy things I never would have imagined. At the same time, I mean, with that comes seasons of heartache, comes seasons of, you know, discouragement. COVID a few years ago. I mean, I think for all of us, I mean, there are certainly some good things that came out, but definitely some moments of disappointment of you know, probably much like your life, things you've been building in or pouring your life into or planning on. You watch them kind of unravel and experience significant disruption and change. And yet, I fully believe that God actually works in those moments. In fact, one of the songs we sing around here often is called Battle Belongs. And there's this line in it that I love. It says, when all I see is the mountain in front of me, and I have no idea how I'm going to overcome this, God, you know what God sees? God sees the mountain moved. And so, you know, my personal mission statement, let me tell you what my personal mission statement that I came up with a number of years ago. My mission is to inspire, equip, and motivate people to live life to the fullest. My mission isn't to lead a church. My mission isn't to create a church that church people like. My mission isn't to try to lead a church to, you know, what we experienced back, you know, at a certain point in time. My mission is to create spaces and opportunities for people to be inspired, equipped, and motivated to live the best version of their life. And I actually believe that includes Jesus. I mean, I just have this strong connection with when we begin to walk with Jesus, when we begin to see that Jesus is for us and that Jesus wants to be a part of our life. As we say all the time, our lives get so much better and we get so much better at life. And it's crazy because I just don't know that there's a better time to live that mission than right now. In fact, many times when I look at my life through that filter of where do I get to inspire, equip, and motivate people to live their best life, I just get overwhelmed with that. In fact, I kind of stumbled upon a number a few months ago when we were in the midst of the Here to There initiative, which we did earlier this spring, which is really cool. Many of you committed to that. We still have commitments coming in. We'll give an update on that here before long again. But I shared a number earlier this spring that over the past 2.5 years, we've seen 2 times more baptisms, 64 baptisms in 2.5 years, which is 2 times more than we saw the previous 4 years before that. When we were much larger, when we had much more momentum, it's crazy to me, and yet that's at the core of part of what my personal mission is. And to see God, lead us through some just crazy challenges, and see God work in ways that I just still am amazed at. To see the work he continues to do in the lives of individual people. I thought I'd peaked out a few years ago, but I've just been realizing over the past few years that perhaps my leadership right now is at some of its best. And I believe that the best is still yet to come. So when we think, man, this might just be the closest I'm going to get to my real mission, do we really believe that perhaps God even has something more? And then the last one, here's number 11. My life is random, even I was an accident. I know for some of us, this whole time you're going, Curt, I don't even know that God would have a purpose for me. I have yet to find it. I want to read for you a little bit out of King David from the Old Testament, his prayer journal. And I want you to listen to David's words about what God thinks about him, about us when he creates us. This is Psalm 139. He says, "O Lord, you have examined my heart and you know everything about me. You know when I sit or stand. When far away, you know every thought. You chart the path ahead of me and you tell me where to stop and rest. Every moment, you know where I am. You know what I am doing and say before I even say it. You both precede and follow me and place your hand, a blessing on my head. This is so glorious, too wonderful to believe. I can never be lost from your spirit. I can never get away from my God. If I go up to heaven, you are there. If I go down to the place of the dead, you are there. If I ride the morning winds to the furthest oceans, even there your hand will guide me and your strength will support me. If I try to hide in the darkness, the night becomes light around me, for even darkness cannot hide from God. You are the night. To you, the night shines as bright as day. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body, and you knit them together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderful and complex. It's amazing to think about. Your workmanship is marvelous." Let me just tell you, if you've ever wondered if God had a plan for you, just know that God formed you and created you exactly the way you are. So 11 false assumptions that literally become barriers to us living our life on purpose. Now, in this week's movie, Jessie gets caught up in this. In fact, she's been questioning her purpose. She's been struggling with her values. She's wondered if I have anything left to bring. I mean, it was awesome when I had this role that I fulfilled, but man, that's long and gone. And it takes her back to this painful moment. I mean, honestly, this installment gets pretty deep because it surfaces some of her pain and loss. In this season, when her kid Emily, who used to spend all this time with her and want to spend every day with her, and then her interests change and she moves on to other interests. And I want you to listen to this song. She has this song that's kind of a lament that we hear back in episode 2, but it resurfaces in episode 5. And as you listen to this song, I want you to ask yourself, and you may know this song. I mean, this is like a gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching song, but I want you to ask yourself, I want you to sit and reflect on this. Have I been there? I mean, have I been there where I've been in that place that Jesse's at? Even perhaps right now, am I in that place where I perhaps feel left alone or lonely or even forgotten? Like I don't have anything left to bring to the table. Am I in that place where I'm just struggling to see that perhaps there's a future even for me? And so here is Macy, Jamie, and Jeff. Wow. Yeah, let's give some props to these guys. You know, it's fascinating that this story and this song reappears in the 5th episode right here. Because see, at that point in Jesse's life, I mean, she was lamenting, oh my gosh, I had this role, I had this place, I had immense purpose, I had a reason for living, and it all just kind of went away. But see, this time in the 5th installment, it's not a lament anymore. It's actually one of the most beautiful moments in the story because see, Jessie actually comes to discover that her purpose was actually for way more than just that moment. That moment when She was Emily's everything. And you're going to have to see the movie to see how this all plays out. But she unearths this old lunchbox. It's buried in some of the area that she used to go play in the field when she was a kid. And in this lunchbox, it's full of childhood keepsakes and photos of an adult Emily, a heartfelt note, pictures of Emily's daughter. And see, in that moment, she actually discovers that not only did she have profound impact on Emily, but also on her kids. And it's trickling down the road and down the line. And you're going to have to see the movie to see how this all plays out. But see, Jessie, in that moment, she actually discovers her purpose. And she actually says it. It's crazy. She actually says this out loud. She says this. She says all that matters. And in a sense, that's her like saying, hey, this is the thing that matters. This is why I'm here. She said, we were there at the right time to help them grow up. And you realize, oh my gosh, she found her purpose. I mean, that purpose, we were there. I mean, I want to be the person that's there at the right time, in the time when these kids, and I'm going to go from kid to kid, and one kid's going to move on, but I'm going to do this for another kid. I was there at the right time to help them, to be a help, to get them to the next place. I'm telling you, that's a mission with some feet right there. One more picture of a mission that I want to kind of point us to before we wrap up. Jesus, when he shows up on the earth over 2,000 years ago, he's one of the most powerful, influential people, but he tells us why he's here. He actually gives us this mission statement. He says, I came that they, meaning you and me, everyone on this earth, might have life and have it more abundantly. In every activity that Jesus undertook, I mean, whether it was turning water into wine, whether it was, playing with children, whether it was, holding seminars by the sea, when he was challenging the current religious status. I mean, all these things were a result of his mission statement. And see, his mission statement was fascinating because it didn't just dictate his work or occupational life. It dictated his leisure life. It dictated his private life. It helped him focus on the activities that he was going to participate in. In fact, it even leads him to some pretty profound moments. In fact, I want to share one of these with you. There was a moment where he was out in the community, and a woman was caught in the act of adultery. And she was brought before him by the religious leaders. And you may have heard this story before. In fact, we just unpacked this story a few months ago here at Crosspoint. And the religious leaders put Jesus in what appears to be a no-win situation. I don't know what it means to be caught in the act of adultery, but apparently she's probably partly clothed. This one was brought out, put in front of Jesus. And the reason he was kind of caught in a no-win situation is because these religious leaders were like, according to the law of Moses, this woman is guilty, and according to the law of Moses, she should be stoned to death. All right, not medicinally, but like with rocks, rocks pelted at her until it kills her. And so, Jesus is in a tough spot because if he agrees with them and he's like, hey, yeah, that's what the law of Moses says, so have at it, go at her, go ahead and stone her, keep throwing rocks until you kill her, and because that's what she deserves, then that goes against his very character. Whereas on the other hand, if he looks at her and he says, well, we ought to just let this one slide, then he's actually going to be accused of breaking the law of Moses and condoning the sin of adultery. So what's he do? What's he going to do right here? What's he going to do? So he did something nobody expects. He actually gets down he bends down, starts drawing in the dirt. And there's all kinds of explanations on this, but I really think he was trying to distract the attention from this woman who had all eyes on her. And the leaders are saying, what are you going to do? Jesus, what are you going to do? And they kept questioning him. And it says, when they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and he said to them, let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw the stone at her. And it says that one by one, starting with the oldest, they all began to walk away until there was no one left. And he looked at the woman. He said, woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? Where are your accusers? She looked around and she said, no one, sir. And he said, then neither do I condemn you. So go and leave your life of sin. See, Jesus refused to judge her right here. Why did he refuse to judge her? Because he knew his mission. His mission was not to condemn. His mission was to breathe life into people. And knowing this mission helped him know how to act. It helped him know what to say. It helped him know what to do. This is what a mission does as we get clear on why we're here and how we do it. So before we close, I just want you to think about some next steps. I want you to think about what you're going to do as a result of your time here this weekend. In fact, on your connection card, there's some next steps. If you want to take that out, I want to run through a few of these. One of them might just be, you might be going, I want to dig into this more. It can start with picking up The Path, the book, The Path. In fact, we have them out at Connection Point. You can scan this and pick it up at Amazon or your favorite bookstore, and just going through this process and going through the experiences and beginning to clarify, okay, here is my mission. I'm telling you, this will be transformational for you. And I think every single person, I was telling my students in my home who are in high school and in college, I'm like, you guys really, I would love for you to go through this because I just think it will really clarify as you go into your work life. If you're like someone who's getting to the end of your work life and you're approaching retirement, I don't think there's anything better to do than to understand, okay, what is my mission that's bigger than the things that I've been doing? If you're in the middle of your work life and you're like, I'm kind of stuck, I feel like I'm kind of stalled out. Again, getting clear on your mission, it will be transformational. Maybe you need a group of people. This is why we're doing the workshop. So, if you want to join the workshop, it begins this Wednesday. You can sign up here. It's free. All you have to do is purchase the book. You can pick one up today. And we're going to coach you, and we're going to guide you, and we're going to kind of be a sounding board to help you dial in the mission. I'm telling you, this will be transformational. Now, maybe you're like, Curt, I'm not there yet. You're curious though, and you want to keep, just leaning in and seeing what God has for you. That's awesome. We would love to see you next weekend. That's always the number one next step on here. I'll just return next weekend. Or maybe you have a friend. It's a great opportunity to invite somebody. Next weekend, we're talking about Spider-Man, right? Spider-Man, brand new day. What a great opportunity to invite a friend, get them free movie tickets, get free movie tickets for yourself. You never know. It might just change the trajectory of their life. So I hope you'll pick a next step. Now, can I tell you, this has been like one of my favorite, most joy-filled opportunities I've ever had to share some of this stuff with you. You know why? Because it's coming out of my mission. I've loved doing that. I don't know if you've loved doing this, but I have loved doing this. Now, before we close, I want to share a reel with you that I got from a friend this week. And I want to show this to you because it again gives us one more picture of Jesus being on mission. And this reel, it shows why Jesus and how Jesus lived out his mission and why he even did what he did when he went to the cross for you and for me. So this is Josh Howerton. Take a look at this right here.
Why did Jesus have to die on the cross?
Yeah.
Why did he have to do it? I don't fully understand why it had to happen.
Mm-hmm.
If he is God.
Why couldn't he just forgive?
Exactly.
Yeah. My favorite way to illustrate this is by a story. So best illustration of why Jesus had to die on the cross I've ever heard. All right. It goes like this. Once upon a time, in a far off kingdom, there was a king who was known by everyone in the kingdom to be the most just and loving king who had ever lived. But then it was discovered that somebody was stealing from the king's treasury. And so the king, being a just king, he sent out an edict that whenever it was discovered who was stealing from the king's treasury, that person would receive 10 lashes. Well, the theft continued, and so he issued another decree. When it's discovered who's stealing from the king's treasury, it would be 20 lashes. Theft continued, 30 lashes, until finally the king issued a final decree, and he said, when it's discovered who's stealing from the king's treasury, it will be a sentence of 40 lashes. Now, the problem with that was that 40 lashes was a death sentence. And so the theft continued until eventually it was discovered that none other than the king's daughter was the one who was stealing from the treasury. So then a question began to ripple through the kingdom. What would the king do? Some thought he would forgive her, but then how would he be just? Some thought that he would issue the sentence, but then how would he be loving? The king sat down and decided, you know what? The sentence is just, the punishment must fall, and so the decree stands. And so one day the entire kingdom was gathered, and in front of everybody, the king's own daughter was marched up to the podium in front of the entire kingdom. And she was bent over the podium, and the back of her shirt was ripped open. And the executioner stood there, and he began to raise his whip to land the first slash. And as soon as he did, the king yelled, "Stop." And there was a silence that fell. And the king strode forward, and he took off his own shirt, and he bent over, and he wrapped his body around his own daughter, and looked back up over his shoulder, and he said, "Now hit her." And the executioner objected, and he said, "But king, those lashes, they'll fall on you." And he said, "The sentence must stand. It's just. Hit her." And so 40 lashes fell on the body of the king that protected the body of his daughter, and the king died in the stead of his daughter. And what happened, Sean, in that story is the king was both just because payment for the sin had to be made, and the king was the justifier of the ungodly. She went free, because he took the penalty. See, the reason Jesus had to die on the cross is because God is just, and so payment for sin has to be made. Like if somebody walked into a courtroom and a judge just went, you know what, man, you raped that girl when she was young, but you're real sorry, and I have the power to do it. You're forgiven. Nobody would think that was a just judge. So penalty for sin had to be made, but God is love, so he made the payment himself.
Yeah, let's clap for that. Wow, that's, I tell you, that's a mission right there. Now, you know what's crazy and what happens when you find yourself on the other side of someone who's on mission? Living out their mission, like fulfilling their God-ordained purpose. Like you find yourself in immense gratitude. You find yourself going, oh my gosh, it's like a blessing to be on the other side of them. You find that like it's so good to be on the other side because they're doing the very thing that God has put them in this world to do. As we close our service today, we're actually going to try to get in that posture of gratitude toward a God who went on mission for you and for me. And we're going to close and participate in an experience that Jesus invited us into. And it's a reminder that Jesus emptied out heaven on your and my behalf just to show us how far he would go. He would do that very thing. He'd wrap his arms around us, the one who deserves the lashes, and he would take them on our behalf. And as a result of that, you and I, we're the beneficiaries of his mission. And I'm telling you, there's some gratitude. There's immense gratitude that comes on that side. So we're going to share in this thing called the Eucharist, the Mass, the Holy Communion, the Lord's Supper. And this is a table that we're going to invite you to, and this isn't our table, it's the table Jesus invites you to, and so it's open to everyone. And Jesus, it's something that followers of him have been doing for hundreds, thousands of years. In fact, he kind of instituted this on one of his last nights with his team when he was preparing to go to the cross the next day, and his team was gathered around, and he picked up a piece of bread on the table, and he said, you know, every time you eat this bread from this day forward, I want you to remember my body, which is going to be broken for you. And they didn't fully understand what that meant. You and I just got to picture that. It meant he was going to wrap his arms around you and I, and he was going to take not 10, not 20, not 30, but 40 lashes for you and for me. And then he picked up the cup on the table, and he said, every time you drink this cup, I want you to remember my blood, which is given for your sins. Because there had to be a life source given in order for there to be a redeeming or a healing of sin. And so again, he took the 40, the death sentence, in order that you and I could have an on-ramp to eternity with him. And so we celebrate this meal, and we find ourselves in just this place when you're on the other side of somebody who's on mission, such as the way Jesus lived that. Man, you just find yourself in such gratitude. So we're actually going to sing a song that talks about that and talks about our gratitude, but we're going to share in this. So I want you to go ahead and stand with me. Again, these tables are open. In a moment, I'm going to invite you forward, and some of you have done this hundreds of times. You can take a piece of bread, you can fill a cup, you can take whatever time you need. Others of us, perhaps this might be your first time. This may be the very first time that you share in this moment, but perhaps you're here and you're like, I want to be on the other side of that. I want to be the beneficiary of that mission that Jesus did. And I want to experience that joy and that peace and that goodness and that love of a God who comes and wraps his arms around me. And so let me pray for us toward that end. God, thank you for being a God on mission, for giving Jesus as an example. Thank you for these stories, Jesse, and these stories that we see of people struggling, and the struggle's real, and we connect with it because we're often in the same boat. And so, God, I thank you for creating a mission for every single one of us. And God, I just pray that as we go into this week, you'd help us to know what to do with what we've heard. You'd prompt us on what our next steps are, and stepping perhaps one step deeper into that thing that you put us on this earth to do. God, in these moments, as we share in the table, we thank you for this. We thank you for your sacrifice and just your forethought, for your patience with us. And so, God, as we receive the bread and the cup, again, some of us, we've done this many, many times, and we just find so much gratitude as we think about all that you've done for us. For others, we may be doing this for the very first time. And this is our expression of saying, Jesus, I want to know your grace and your goodness. I want to receive the benefit of what you did on the cross for me. And so, Father, I just pray that you would meet us where we are. You would receive us as we receive you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your great love and for your patience and for your missional heart that loved us so much that you emptied out heaven on our behalf so that we could be with you. Amen. All right, the band's going to lead us in this song. As they do, you're welcome to make your way to the tables. Those of you online, grab something to eat, something to drink, whatever you have will do, and join us in this moment. Let's remember God's goodness and the benefits that come on being on the other side of his mission. Let's share this together.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Take a moment to follow our podcast on your preferred platform, and be sure to download our app to stay informed on everything happening here at Crosspoint. And if you like what you heard today, don't hesitate to share it with a friend that might need to hear it too.